Welcome to the Dino Watch Podcast, a show helping you to separate the facts from the fiction as we look at incident reports from the world and break down where dinosaurs have been sighted in the wild. In today's episode, we are exploring how the dinosaurs have intersected with the everyday events which so many of us hold dear. There are big events in our lives which mean everything, from the birth of children to getting our dream jobs and even getting married. These events have traditionally had their own fair share of challenges, which we all know, but the advent of dinosaurs in the wild has brought a whole new nightmare for event planners and special occasions alike. Joining us for today's episode is a bride whose big day was ruined when a pteranodon swept in and stole the show. We've heard a few reports of encounters with these animals in the past few months, with them occasionally causing havoc for air traffic control and even causing one Fish and Wildlife Service helicopter to crash, leaving 2 operatives severely injured. Whilst today's story isn't nearly as extreme, it is a reminder of how the dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals are now interwoven with everyday life. So Sarah, thank you for joining us, and why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Hi, yeah, thank you. My name is Sarah. I work in a library archive, and of course you know me as the bride whose wedding got ruined by a pterodon. And also in the video is my husband Dorian.
Cool, okay. So obviously, as you alluded to there perfectly, prehistoric animals had a really big impact on your big day, and that is definitely something that we'll come to and we'll talk about. But I'm interested, beforehand, were there any smaller impacts that they had? We've heard stories of people saying that it's hard to get certain things because triceratops have flipped over supply trucks, for example. So anything like that, or was it fairly normal ahead of the big day?
No, before that, I really hadn't noticed anything. We'd hear stories from people about dinosaurs and sightings and stuff, and we had a cousin that said he encountered something on a hike, but we didn't really believe him, honestly. But no, other than that, I hadn't seen one before. Nothing really seemed to be impacted in my life, honestly.
Okay, so it sounds like before the big day things were pretty normal, and then once you got to that point, everything kind of changed for you. So can you talk us through step by step and describe what happened?
Yeah, so wedding was going off without a hitch. You know, usually you try and plan for things to go wrong, like, oh, you run out of alcohol, maybe your dress gets a stain on it, like somebody's uncle gets a little too out of hand, needs to be dealt with, those kind of things, right? So everything was going fine. And we got to the end of the ceremony, and we wanted to do something a little special, but, nothing too crazy. So we decided on doing a dove release.
Okay.
We thought it would be a special little thing.
Yeah.
Well, we got the doves. Everything was fine. We go to release them. And I just remember kind of feeling like a gust of wind come from behind me. I didn't really see much at the time because, I was facing away, towards, my guests, and focusing on keeping this dove in my hands, And so we released this, and then there was, a whooshing wind, and then, the pterodon thing, just grabbed the dove.
Yeah.
It was weird. And then, people started screaming, and yeah.
It all went from there. Yeah, no, it sounds like it was a really terrifying close encounter, and although you say obviously it wasn't that intimidating in terms of the fact that it was just a gust of wind, I can imagine it still having quite an impact. So obviously you said people started screaming. How did your guests and the other people who were attending the wedding react after that point? Did everything get a bit chaotic?
It did. There was kind of a mix, honestly, of how people reacted, because there was the initial, screaming, freaking out, what just happened.
Yeah.
And so a few people started running off. I think some people just ran directly to their cars. And then there were a few of us, and myself included, that just really didn't know what happened. Like, it took a second to process. So it was kind of we were just like, what's happening? And then I know we did have a few kids at the wedding who were like really excited because they instantly knew it was a pterodon, which, you know, I was schooled on because I just called it a dinosaur at the beginning. And they, you know, corrected me. But yeah, so there was kind of a weird mix because, you know, it was a very quick thing. And then it was just kind of us dealing with it after.
Yeah. So on the subject of dealing with it after then, I guess, I know when we were talking beforehand, before we started this recording, you mentioned that in some of the ensuing chaos, there were things that happened, like the bandstand that had been set up getting destroyed. So how did that happen? And then what did that mean for the rest of the event as well?
Yeah, so one of the people that ran was my now husband, Dorian. His uncle...
I'm glad to hear you were able to finish the day at least.
Yes, we finished it out. We soldiered on through that. But no, his uncle was one of the few that decided to run. Unfortunately, he was already a little tipsy at that point.
Okay.
And he just didn't really look where he was running and ran through the entire band setup and kind of domino affected, and things just got knocked over and some of the instruments were completely ruined, and it was a mess, honestly.
Yeah, definitely doesn't sound like a fun end to the day.
No.
So, obviously, in the world more broadly right now, we're seeing a lot of different things that people are dealing with. You know, we've seen people who have maybe had encounters with dinosaurs on highways and they get damage to their cars, all those kinds of things. And it's still very, very murky territory for things like insurance. So I was curious, were you able to get a refund for any of the stuff that was ruined on the day? And if you were, how was that process of actually claiming for damages that involved a dinosaur? Because I don't think any of us ever imagined doing that.
Right. So honestly, that part was more of a mess than the actual wedding event. Because the venue that we were at, obviously we put a deposit down for the rental and stuff. But that's usually to cover, you know, random spills, plates breaking, you know, the occasional mishap. So we actually ended up fighting a lot with the venue because they initially wanted us to pay for all of the damages, including to the bandstand. They wanted us to pay for the doves that got eaten. You know, it was weird. So it was a whole big thing of like, and talking to not only our insurance companies, but the venue talked to their insurance companies, because this is still a thing that's not, you know, not widely talked about or widely needs to, you know, be resolved. So there's no dinosaur clauses really yet in insurance policies. We did talk to them though, and ended up coming to an agreement, and you know, our insurance, I'm sure they'll put clauses in there now. But everybody was able to get their claims covered from this, so it turned out okay.
Yeah, I'm glad it was all resolved okay in the end. And obviously, the reason why we're doing this interview is because you went viral on social media, so I can imagine that's not such a bad thing either. Yeah, what would you say that whole experience has been like since then, of just seeing how people have reacted to that video as well?
Honestly, it's been kind of crazy. I think we went, because we decided to just post it on YouTube because why not? So we have been getting, you know, views on that pretty constantly since it was posted, and you know, making some ad money off of that, because why not? And then, you know, it's been reposted on every social media. I think we went viral on TikTok a couple weeks ago. You know, so it's been weird just kind of opening social media and seeing my face in my wedding, and that over and over again.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine it's not quite how you imagined wedding day videos would go.
No, definitely not. I mean, it made it a little more interesting, and
Yeah.
I certainly will never forget that. And neither will any of my guests. But yeah, it's just weird seeing my face and my wedding on like local news, reports and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. This is why we're keeping this to a podcast, because we
Mm-hmm.
definitely do not want our faces out on the local news.
Yeah.
So I did want to explore something else quickly, and that is
Mm-hmm.
obviously as we have encounters with these animals, they can have a lasting impact on people. So
Mm-hmm.
when we spoke to somebody at the initial start of this show, who lived near Lockwood Manor, where obviously a lot of these animals stemmed from, and he was talking about the longer lasting impact that had on the local area initially, and
Mm-hmm.
then it waned afterwards. But obviously, he's still worried about dinosaurs here and there and having encounters with them.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke a lot about being aware of that moving forward. So I was interested as to whether there has been any lasting impact for you, or if not, have any of your guests said that actually that encounter has had a lasting impact on them?
Yeah, I think it has on me. Definitely in like I'm more aware
Yeah,
of the reports that, if there's dinosaurs in the area, I try and, just keep an eye on it like I would any other kind of news.
yeah,
Um, it's luckily nothing else has really been impacted in my daily life by dinosaurs. I haven't had any more in close encounters with any more.
yeah,
Um, but, I'm definitely keeping them in mind when I do stuff. Like, if I want to go for a hike, I'm going to, make sure I check and see if there's been any in the area. Or if I do another event, I'm going to make sure that I think about things like, oh, if there are pterodons in the area, maybe we don't do an outside event.
yeah. It's crazy to think that that's the level we're at now, isn't it? That we have to consider all of these things.
Right.
Because I mean, like we alluded to, events planning in general is bad enough, but factoring in the
Mm-hmm.
idea of prehistoric animals suddenly existing again,
Right.
it's definitely pretty crazy to comprehend, I think.
It really
Um,
is.
so obviously there as well we've spoken a lot about the ongoing impact that it's having, and this is something which we've been asking all of our guests who we've been able to get on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious to see how you think we fix things currently, and what do we need to do to deal with the dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know if we can really do anything to fix the situation. I mean, we've lived with many other animals for years now. It's just kind of a different relationship now with
Yeah,
these things. Um, so, I think it's reframing our mindset and, how we do things. Like, if I were to go back in time right now and plan a wedding, I would not have an outdoor wedding. Or at least, check the area
yeah.
and,
Maybe
oh,
put some
my,
fences up.
right. Get like, I don't know, maybe the venue should do this, like get a net or something
Yeah,
to cover the top. But I'm sure they're thinking about that. um, but just like being aware of what's in the area, and just kind of working around it.
yeah.
Like I said, I wouldn't have an outdoor wedding and I wouldn't have done the dove release. And then it wouldn't be a big deal. We wouldn't have attracted pterodons. So I think it's just a matter of time of us kind of like adjusting to this new
Yeah.
way of life.
So do you think that the dinosaurs are here to stay then? Because obviously there's a lot of debate around them and around what we do to move forwards, really. And there's people on all different sides of the discussion. But do you think it's really just going to be about finding a way for us to coexist with them?
I think so. I mean, I do not, I did not like the surprise encounter that I had.
Yeah.
But we're kind of adjusting to things slowly as it goes on, and trying to track where things are, where different creatures are roaming around.
Yeah.
And I think with anything else, we just kind of have to adjust because they're, people created them. We've had that Jurassic World Park for a long time now. So they've existed. It's just we haven't been around them. So I don't know. It's just I think it's going to take a little time.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair enough comment. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sarah. I can imagine that you've had a lot of questions since going viral from all different kinds of media outlets. So I really appreciate you making the time to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for talking to me.
And I now need to make my mouse work so I can scroll to the outro. There we go. There you have it. I've heard of some chaotic ways for your big day to be ruined, but none quite like a pteranodon swooping in to quite literally steal your thunder. It goes to show that dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals are continuing to become a part of everyday life for thousands of us. And this is something which we will look at even further in our next episode as we finally tackle the well-known incident which occurred at Big Rock National Park. Make sure to join us next week where we talk to somebody who was on the campsite nearby the ill-fated trailer which was subject to an attack from an Allosaurus. You've seen the photographs and now get the real story, only on the Dino Watch podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Together, we can learn how to survive with dinosaurs in the wild.